All Indiana Politics
is your premier source for Indiana politics.
Focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Good morning and welcome to All Indiana Politics. I'm Garrett Bergquist in for Phil Sanchez. Vice President Kamal Harris already is making abortion rights and gun violence prevention central to her presidential campaign. Those were central themes in one of her first speeches of the campaign right here in Indianapolis. Harris was the keynote speaker at the annual convention of the Zeta Phi Beta sorority. Here's some of what she had to say.
In this moment, I believe we face a choice between two different visions for our nation. One focused on the future, the other focused on the past. And with your support, I am fighting for our nation's future. And let us be clear about what that future looks like. I know the leaders in this room, and I know the future we believe in and we fight for. We here believe in a future where, for example, everyone has affordable health care, which is why our administration capped the cost of insulin for our seniors at $35 a month. We believe in a future where no child has to grow up in poverty, which is why I helped pass the child tax credit, which cut child poverty in half and cut black child poverty even more. We believe in a future where the economy works for working people. That is why we forgave student loan debt for more than 5 million Americans. And if you or anyone you know benefited from that, please testify. And we are finally making it so that medical debt can no longer be used against your credit score. And it is because of our collective vision for the future that we continue to fight for affordable child care, affordable elder care, and paid family leave. We here believe in a future where all women and all mothers are safe. That is why, as Vice President, I have elevated and took on the issue of maternal mortality, knowing that women in America die at a higher rate in connection with childbirth than women in any other wealthy nation in the world. And black women are 3 times more likely to die in connection with childbirth. And for too long, this has been a crisis in our country, and it is time that we recognize the crisis it is. In fact, when I took office, I challenged every state in our nation on this issue because, you see, I said, look, we need to extend Medicaid postpartum coverage from a measly 2 months to a full year. And I'm proud to report, whereas when I issued the challenge, only 3 states offered a full year of coverage, now 46 states do. We must also recognize there are those who are trying to take us backward. You may have seen their agenda. Part of it is called Project 2025. Now, can you believe they put that in writing? 900 pages of it. Project 2025, a plan to return America to a dark past. They intend to cut Medicare, to repeal our $35 cap on insulin, to eliminate the Department of Education, to end programs like Head Start, which would take away preschool for hundreds of thousands of children in our communities. Let's be clear. This represents an outright attack on our children, our families, and our future. These extremists want to take us back, but we are not going back. We are not going back. Ours is a fight for the future, and ours is a fight for freedom. Across our nation, we are witnessing a full-on assault on hard-fought, hard-won freedoms and rights. The freedom to vote, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, the freedom to live without fear of bigotry and hate, the freedom to love who you love openly and with pride, the freedom to learn and acknowledge our true and full history, and the freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government telling her what to do. And in the face of these attacks, we must continue to stand together in defense of freedom. We who believe in the sacred freedom to vote will make sure then that every American has the ability to cast their ballot and have it counted. We who believe that every person in our nation should be free from gun violence will finally pass universal background checks, red flag laws, and an assault weapons ban.
Senator and governor candidate Mike Braun released a statement shortly after Harris spoke. He says, Joe Biden tasked Kamala Harris to be our border czar, and it's been an unmitigated disaster, as every day thousands of illegal immigrants are flowing through our southern border with an end goal of either taking Hoosier jobs or bringing drugs to our state, and it needs to stop. With Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and myself, we will secure our southern border, make our communities safe again, and enact my freedom and opportunity agenda to grow our economy and keep Indiana great. Coming up, Israel's prime minister addresses Congress as the war in Gaza nears the 10-month mark. We hear from one of Indiana's members of Congress who watched his remarks. Welcome back. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he will achieve total victory over Hamas. Those words came during a speech to a joint session of Congress at the invitation of House Republicans. Several members of Indiana's delegation were present, including Congresswoman Erin Houchin. She talked to our Phil Sanchez right after the speech.
And let's welcome in Indiana Republican Representative Erin Houchin. Now, Representative, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What were your biggest takeaways from Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech?
You know, the Israeli people are very resilient. They've been through so much. And, you know, there were many members of the audience there, distinguished guests, survivors of being a hostage, military heroism, but Netanyahu was resolved that Israel will stay in the fight to defeat Hamas and terror in the Middle East, and they'll be a beacon of hope and democracy in that region, and they stand with America and we stand with them.
Congresswoman, have the politics surrounding Israel aid on Capitol Hill shifted since President Biden dropped out of the race?
You know, I think that remains to be seen, but it was not insignificant that Vice President Kamala Harris, the president of the Senate, was not on hand today. She's actually campaigning in Indiana with a sorority there instead of being at the side of Benjamin Netanyahu and next to Speaker Johnson. And that's a very symbolic difference that I think does speak to the divide among the Democratic Party with respect to Israel. So we will see. President Biden, as Netanyahu mentioned in his remarks, had been steadfastly supportive of Israel, although it remains to be seen if that will remain the case now that he is no longer a candidate.
So what's next for Israel aid on the Hill, and what can we expect from Congress in the weeks ahead?
Netanyahu did ask us to continue to get aid to them and to do so quickly. And if they get aid quickly, they will end this war swiftly. I think it's clear that Republicans in Congress continue to stand with Israel. We continue to stand with their right to defend themselves. Some of these protests that we've seen, they're actually protesting on behalf of, the Iranian government and Hamas that wants to destroy not only Israel, but wants to bring death to America as well. So you will see, I think, strong support for Israel in Congress as we move forward. That is clear that there are both Republicans and Democrats, strong support on the Republican side, lots of standing ovations on our side, scattered Democrats standing on their side, some remaining seated. Although they were there, it was just a sad day that we did not have the vice president in the chamber for the address. She did not greet Netanyahu on the tarmac. She was not present in the chamber, and that's a sad day for some remarks from our greatest ally, the only democracy in the Middle East, the state of Israel.
Congresswoman, families of Israeli hostages have said that Netanyahu is not doing enough to secure a ceasefire and bring the hostages home. What do you make of those criticisms?
Well, I think that he is doing everything he can. In fact, we saw and honored in the chamber several members of the military, some who gave their own lives to rescue hostages. Again, there was a hostage victim who was present in the gallery that had been rescued with two other hostages. So it is a difficult war that is being waged. I think what I would say and what I always say is that Hamas could end this if they would drop their weapons, release the hostages, and stop their attacks on Israel. So there could be a peaceful solution. I know that Benjamin Netanyahu is working toward that. It's a tough circumstances, but he is trying every single day to bring those hostages, every single one of them, home.
One more question, Congresswoman, before I let you go, and I appreciate you coming on. Are you surprised the Prime Minister is scheduled to meet with not only President Biden and Vice President Harris, but also former President Donald Trump?
I'm not surprised. I mean, Donald Trump led the Abraham Accords. That was a historic peace agreement in the Middle East that still has is paying dividends despite the war that's going on there. We saw several of those countries come to the aid of Israel when they were under attack recently by Iran. And so I'm not surprised that he'll be spending time with Donald Trump. I'm also not surprised to see that he will be spending time with the president and vice president. I think that's customary. So I hope that those meetings are productive.
Representative Houchin, thank you so much for joining the show. We appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andre Carson was one of dozens of congressional Democrats who boycotted Netanyahu's speech. He says on X, formerly Twitter, giving Netanyahu the honor and platform of addressing Congress after his dishonorable and deadly actions only empowers his regime and demonstrates to our allies that the U.S. will turn a blind eye if they violate international law. He goes on to say, we must end the flow of weapons that are wiping out entire Palestinian families while doing nothing to advance peace. We must change course. Coming up, Indiana's best political team assesses Kamala Harris's first full week on the presidential campaign trail and a possible Hoosier on her ticket. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in two members of Indiana's best political team, Democrat Laura Beck and Republican Mario Masalamani. Let's begin with Vice President Harris's presidential run. Laura, you're the communications expert on this panel. How would you evaluate the way Harris has crafted her message in the first week since President Biden bowed out of the race?
Well, I think you're being way too kind to me, first of all, because Mario himself is pretty much a comms expert, too. Look, I think she's had a great first week. I think it's looking back when you consider it has been 1 month since Joe Biden's absolutely disastrous debate. And here we are. I mean, she had a great first week. She raised $126 million. She had the best 24 hours of grassroots fundraising in any presidential campaign history, which is really saying a lot because that's small dollar donation. She really went out in those first few days and articulated a very strong message. She's articulating a contrast. She is really making the case for why it is time for generational change. And I think that's a really important message. There were 38,000 new voter registrations between ages of 18 and 35. Women all over the country are mobilizing. And if you look at how the Trump campaign is adapted, and it's very challenging because they have been set up to run against Joe Biden. You have J.D. Vance just making all kinds of stumbles, and there's a lot of doubt about his ability. And then you've got Trump, who's now thinking he may back out of that debate. So I think all things considered, she's had a really good first week, and I think people are really excited and motivated.
Mario, to Laura's point, there has been some chatter that Donald Trump is having second thoughts about naming J.D. Vance as his running mate now that Harris is leading the ticket. How do Republicans counteract concerns about Vance, especially his past concerns about women and abortion?
Listen, Democrats are on a sugar high right now. As Laura said, they were in utter chaos for three weeks, right? They didn't know what was going on. They didn't know how to handle this. But with any sugar high, as I tell my kids, it's going to come crashing down. The main focus of this presidential race is going to be coming down to the 6 to 8 battleground states. And even though the Democrats are energized by having somebody different than Joe Biden, I think it's still not going to matter. And even if she's raised a lot of money, she is really down on some of these polls, like Michigan, in Pennsylvania. So she's got to be able to put together a presidential campaign and be able to articulate a message in those 8 battleground states fairly quickly, because most people don't realize that early voting is going to start on the 1st of October. So this is not something where she has a lot of time to get ready. And so I think that President Trump, as it pertains to J.D. Vance is an articulate, intelligent individual who has a great story. He's going to do well. I think that Trump really, who else was he going to pick? He wasn't going to pick Nikki Haley. He was not going to pick Kristi Noem. So it wasn't like he was going to go pick a woman candidate that was going to somehow impact the race by bringing him a different constituents. So I think J.D. Vance is somebody that, again, can articulate a message. He grew up in extreme poverty. His mother was an addict. He basically pulled himself up through his bootstraps, was in the military, graduated from Ohio State in 2.5 years, went to Yale, is a self-made man, and he's got a great story to tell in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. He just has to get out there and do it. Is he as bombastic or as energetic as Donald Trump? Honestly, no one is. And so he's got to find his way. He's going to be able to do that, and he's got to be able to take his message to the American people.
Well, speaking of running mates, Transportation Secretary and former South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg is believed to be on Harris's short list. He's visiting Indiana on Friday. Laura, what would Mayor Pete bring to the Harris ticket, and how good are his chances of appearing on the ticket compared to other frontrunners such as Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and Arizona Senator Mark Kelly?
Well, I think he's got as good a shot as any. I mean, frankly, I think one of his strongest points, I always call him Mayor Pete, but one of Pete Buttigieg's strongest points is I think he is arguably the best messenger right now for the Democratic Party. He is so good at speaking to people and speaking and meeting people right where they are. And what I thought was so fascinating about his presidential run when he ran are the number of people I know who are Republicans, who are moderates, who were really intrigued by him, who loved his message, and who continue to follow him all the way through. So I think he is the full package. If someone were to be on the ticket, he does now live in Michigan, so he's a Michigan resident. He does bring that one of those battlegrounds, as Mario mentioned. We do have a deep bench, though. We've got folks like Josh Shapiro, Mark Kelly. We've got folks in the Senate, Roy Cooper, the governor of North Carolina. One person I think we should not overlook is Andy Beshear. He's the governor of Kentucky. He's been incredibly popular, has done a really great job there. So we have a deep bench.
Laura, I've got about a minute left. I need to bring Mario in here.
I think we're proud of that.
Mario,
go ahead, Mario. Sorry.
Some of the names
I can
that
talk
have been
about
floated,
Pete all day long.
Some of the names that have been floated suggest a play for the heartland. Trump did that this year with Vance from Ohio and with former Indiana Governor Mike Pence in 2016. How important is geography in choosing a running mate?
I think it's extremely important. I doubt Kamala Harris is going to listen to my opinion, but I think that she needs to pick a vice president from one of the battleground states, like a Shapiro, like a Kelly. She's not doing well in Pennsylvania. Her comments on fracking. Additionally, there's not a lot of minorities in Pennsylvania. In Arizona, Kelly would be a great pick for her because favored son status, right? Shapiro and Kelly in their states that are battleground states, usually they will bring something to that ticket and maybe lock in that state. And I think in both Arizona and in Pennsylvania.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. We will have to leave it there. Thank you so much. We'll be right back.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. And be sure to tune in at 11 this morning for The Hill Sunday with Chris Steyerwalt. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.